Hi, this is Jackie from girlwithnoname.com, and not long ago I had the distinct honor and pleasure of interviewing none other than Mike Geary, the author of The Truth About Six-Pack Abs and The Fat Burning Kitchen. And here are some of the things that he had to say.
Skiing, things that I enjoy. I've never been a jogger myself. I just, for some reason, with my body type or whatever, I just don't enjoy it. So that's not something that's going to work for me. But mountain biking works for me. But also, I think that everybody, regardless of if you like it or not, should get into at least some resistance training because it's so important for strengthening your bones and, you know, increasing your lean muscle mass to maximize your metabolism. And there's just so many benefits to it.
Right. Just to stay on the subject of cardio for one more minute, what about high-intensity interval training, what's been be known as HIIT? Do you recommend that?
I do, and that's actually, I recommend that more than I do steady-state cardio. I think you can get a much more efficient workout done in a shorter time period.
Can you explain a little bit about what it is exactly?
Yeah, so it's just working at intervals instead of at higher and lower intensities. I also think there's a increased benefit to strengthening your heart, and I actually had an entire course on this topic about the increases on how interval training can actually strengthen your heart more than steady state training, such as jogging. But like I said, I'm not going to say don't jog if that's what you like. Mix that in, but you've got to make sure that you're mixing in other forms of training that are training your heart at totally different heart rate ranges. The one problem that I can see that people get into is, say, the only form of exercise they ever do is going out and jogging, or at the same pace all the time, or going on a treadmill or exercise bike and just going on that same pace all the time. So they get in that, they get to a certain heart rate range that they're training their heart, and that's just what they do for an hour or whatever it may be. As opposed to interval training where you might take the intensity up pretty high for like a minute, and then you'll take it down low for a recovery interval set for, say, a minute or two.
And this can be on like a bicycle or running or something like that. We're not talking
about
it
can be, it can be with a lot of things. You can do it on a treadmill, you can do it on an exercise bike or any other cardio machine. Or you can do it with something like a jump rope. You jump rope really hard for a minute, and then you rest for a minute or two and as your recovery interval, and then you go at it again. There's a lot of different ways to do it. The difference is if you're training at, so let's take the example of the jogger who jogs at the same pace, and let's say their heart rate stays at 130 beats per minute the entire time. Well, you're only training your heart at that one range. Now, with interval training, or even to the most extreme extent, sprinting, which I love to do sprint training, you're going at a much higher intensity level, and this is assuming that someone can do a higher intensity level, which we can touch on because it might not be for beginners. But now, let's say you're during the higher intensity, you're bringing your heart rate up to 160 beats per minute. And then you're going on a recovery interval that might bring it down to 100. So you're ranging between 100 to 160 during your training, and it's going everywhere in between instead of that 130 beats per minute that you're just training at constantly and never shifting.
Right.
So that is a big difference in how your heart has to respond to that and strengthen and be ready for stress that happens in everyday life.
Right, exactly. What if someone, though, is just starting out or has quite a bit of weight to lose and can't really manage anything, really high intensity quite yet? What do they do then? Like, how do they build up to this?
Sure. Well, in that case, I'll usually, if they're not really ready for higher intensity interval training yet, what I generally recommend to them is a mixture of resistance training, because almost anybody, even someone who has been sedentary and is maybe even obese, can do resistance training, and they're going to actually get a lot of benefits out of it for increasing their metabolism too. And then combine that with some form of lower intensity cardio that they can do, whatever they can do. Maybe it's just getting outside and going for a half an hour walk. Mm-hmm. And that might be all they can do until they drop some of the weight and get in better shape. And then the more advanced you get, in better shape you get, you're going to be able to start training more intensely with more advanced routines, even to the extent where when you get in really good shape, you can train at the highest intensity stuff possible, like, all-out wind sprints.
Right.
And that's when you can get really, really, low body fat percentages and get really ripped, is when you're able to just train with that super high intensity with the most advanced stuff.
Yeah, I do a lot of that as well. On this note though, what about the weight training moves? There's quite a few in the Truth About Abs that are quite a bit more complex. So while we're talking about someone who's inexperienced or has quite a bit of weight to lose, I mean, some of these moves are pretty complex. So if they're too difficult for them to achieve, or just from inexperience, or just the fact that their current size gets in the way, how can they get there, get to where they need to be to do these moves?
Yeah, so there is a lot of more advanced exercise in there, but there's also plenty of multi-joint exercises where you can work your entire body with pretty simple moves, like any form of chest pressing, whether it's dumbbells, barbells, flat, incline, whatever it may be. Any beginner can do that. Any
Right.
beginner can do, even if they can't do pull-ups yet, can do lat pull-downs or horizontal rows or dumbbell rows. And these are all multi-joint exercises that work, all of the biggest muscle groups. Almost any beginner can do a body weight squat. Sure, they may not be able to get under a heavy barbell and do barbell squats yet, or do heavy, deadlifts, because those are, especially deadlifts, they're pretty advanced. First of all, you need to learn. It takes a lot of technique to make sure you get them right and not hurt yourself. So you start with easy stuff like bodyweight squats, bodyweight lunges. Anybody can do these things as a beginner, and just progress from there as you get stronger and as you get leaner.
Right. Okay, great. So it does boil down to that, regardless of, who you are or how old you are or what your current weight is or if you have kids or not. It really just comes down to dedication and commitment as well. I mean, you really do have to stick with it. It's not something you just work on for a week and then, I don't see my abs. I haven't lost 40 pounds, so I give up. So it's something that's really worth sticking with. And I wanted to ask you this, because one person asked me this, and I'm just going to say it verbatim. She asked, is it possible that I am just not physically able to get a six-pack no matter what I do, including working the Truth About Six-Pack Abs program to the letter?
Well, I would say that she already has a six-pack, because everybody does. My 8-year-old nephew has six-pack abs. The reason you can see him is because he doesn't have any body fat yet,
Right.
So, so that's where. So I will say something here that it is possible that some people may not reduce their body fat levels enough to where they see their abs, even if they're doing the hard workouts and they're doing it religiously, because if their diet is not where it needs to be, if they're nutritious.
Well, obviously the interview is a lot longer than this, so if you want to hear the rest, just head over to gwnn.me/Mike Geary Talks, and you can check out the whole interview there.